Welcome to the ExoVoice podcast. My name is Liezel van Rooyen from the ExoGroup. In this episode, Craig Terblanche, Exponential advisor and transformation strategist, sits down with serial entrepreneur, angel investor, and author Fabrice Testa, the mind behind Super-Entrepreneurship Decoded. Fabrice brings deep insight into building high-impact ventures, innovation at scale, and what it truly takes to turn bold ideas into real-world change. Together, Craig and Fabrice explore the mindset, systems, and leadership required to thrive in the age of exponential acceleration and to build businesses that matter. Fabrice and Craig, sincerely thank you to both of you for your time and for generously sharing your expertise with our listeners today. Thank you, Craig.
Thanks, Liezel. Wow. This is really deja vu back to some good times when we met Fabrice back in 2019 when we all did our Exponential Organizations certification together. And a lot has happened since then. And just reading Fabrice's bio, successfully having co-founded or participated in the launch of multiple companies that created hundreds of millions of jobs and generated millions in revenue. I have to say I'm so envious because one day when I'm big, I want to be able to say that on my bio. So it's really awesome. And I see myself as a serial entrepreneur, but I really haven't got to the level that Fabrice has got to. So Fabrice, how do you do this? And tell us a bit more about some of your secrets.
I don't know if I have a special secrets. Maybe sometimes you have also to be at the right place at the right time, and I've been quite lucky. So yes, I thanks God every day for this. Look, actually, as you said, I've been an entrepreneur for more than the last 30 years. I have co-founded or founded multiple companies in different sectors, space, deep tech, and also digital disruption. One of the companies, indeed, we achieved 100 million turnover, 200 people. We sold the company. Mm-hmm. And after that, I co-founded a satellite service company in Luxembourg. It was 2012 and the end of 2012. And after that, after 3 years, we sold the company. And I had no new entrepreneurial projects. But I had the luxury to have a bit time and money. So I decided to support entrepreneurs as a business angel, mentor, and coach. And then after that, I had the chance to meet a young entrepreneur in 2017. And we co-founded a company based in Luxembourg called Mana Electric. And more recently in 2023, I also co-founded another company called Atmos Space Cargo. So today I spend my time with these companies, with also some companies of my portfolio where I have some board mandates. And I'm also a mentor coach in several programs. So
you certainly are a super entrepreneur, and in 2021 you wrote the book on super entrepreneurship, and that has been kind of the catalyst or the foundation for a framework for some of these amazing achievements that you've outlined. So, and just picking up on one or two things that you're saying. So the one thing is, I'm surprised that you mentioned luck, because I've heard that it's often more about timing than luck. So what are your views on that? Is it really luck?
You are right, because I think Thomas Edison was saying that business is 99% of persistence and 1% of luck. But you need a bit of luck at some point. Or what I have read is that it's not also a question maybe just pure luck, but it's to put yourself into network situations where you favor the luck. So basically, it's to try to be a collector of opportunistic bets. I wrote recently an article about it. So you need to see opportunities where the reward will be extremely high, but the downside is very small. And so I think it's when I look back at my life, it's true that it's always something that I was looking for. I'm taking a risk or not? Is the risk limited? But the reward will be extremely high. And so sometimes, I stop something to start something else. And I remember when I stopped, the cinema industry to be back with the space industry, many people told me, oh, but you are, one of the pioneers in the industry, in the digital cinema, everyone. You are completely crazy to stop this activity, to do something else. But I was seeing indeed this kind of asymmetric risk. And this is, and I think it's a way to somehow favor the luck, but it's not pure luck for sure. I agree with you. But indeed,
I think the other thing with timing is, this whole exponential age, the timing of technologies maturing, accelerating, the timing of the world problems that we have, all of these things coming together. I think that is an issue. So, what are your thoughts on where we're at in this exponential age and the opportunities that it brings?
No, you are right. Timing is everything, and this is something that I explained in my book. So yes, indeed, in 2021, I decided to write this book, Super-Entrepreneurship Decoded, to a bit share some lessons that I experienced myself, but also from other entrepreneurs that I met or I observed. And I wanted to share. And I basically imagine a framework that I call the crazy method that allow entrepreneurs, innovators to tackle some big challenges with radical solutions that I call crazy ideas. So this is why it's the crazy method, because it's an acronym for with crazy, but each letter means something. Okay. And so I can briefly explain it, and I will arrive to your timing issue, because it's one of the letter of the crazy. So the first C is catapult your ambition. What I have seen basically with most of super entrepreneurs, what I call super entrepreneurs, is that they have an ambition which is very high. And it's true that if you want to tackle some big challenges, which are among, solving maybe some climate issues, food issues, water, energy, etc., you need to have a high level of ambition. So that's the first letter of the acronym of crazy. The second one is the R, so the rock solid plan. Because it's nice to have big ideas, big dreams, but you need a solid plan if you want to succeed. And what I have observed is that most of these super entrepreneurs, they are not amateurs, they are professionals. So they do financial plans, they do simulations. It's not something, that they're just a big dream, and then they create, a $1 billion company just like this. No, they have worked very hard on their plans before launching it, and in order to successfully materialize their dream. Then the A is amazing, because usually they build amazing solutions. And this is where they use what we call exponential technologies. So technologies like 3D printing, drones, genomics, AI, robotics, supercomputing, etc. Then, and this is where timing is important, is the Z is the Zeitgeist, because you need to use to let's say launch your venture at the right timing and to use favorably the mood of the times. Because if you are too early, usually you are going to burn a lot of cash. If you are too late, the market usually is over. So the timing is super important. And these super entrepreneurs, they have an ability actually to sense when is the right timing. And maybe in a few minutes, I can give an example of one company that I describe in the book that failed because I think they were too early, probably. And then the last letter is the Y, the Yamakasi. Yamakasi are these free runners that do what is also called parkour. And actually, it reflects really the mindset that these super entrepreneurs have. They are very agile, looking for excellence. They work hard, but they stay humble too.
So I'm not familiar with that term, but is that similar to parkour?
Yamakasi actually is a term which comes from Africa. It means strong man, and it was a movie from Luc Besson that maybe this French director that did quite a lot of very quite known movies like Lucy, etc. And actually, this movie was has been very popular, probably more in the French-speaking areas. But and it was about the adventure of these free runners, etc. And for me, it was the right word to illustrate the mindset of super entrepreneurs.
Yeah, and crazy big ideas whose time has come is essentially what I'm hearing here. And I mean, for me, the biggest challenge that we've seen, certainly from an African context, is the scarcity mindset. So the opposite of the abundance mindset, where the people aren't even aware of what's possible. So these crazy big ideas whose time has come are kind of few and far between in the African context. People are generally much more risk averse, much more almost indoctrinated in scarcity. So, and you mentioned that your super entrepreneurs are professionals who have, done a lot of planning, done a lot of financial modeling, have their act together, as it were. And certainly we found here in the accelerators that the people that are in the accelerators are not the people where the real need is. The real need is more on the ground, in the townships where the poverty is, etc. But I digress. So your thoughts on abundance versus scarcity in the context of this discussion?
Yeah, I think Africa is indeed a good case, because we see sometimes Africa as a continent where many things are missing. But actually, I do believe that it's a continent with a lot of abundance. In terms of resources, the continent is super rich in many things. If you look at minerals, for example, there are several countries that are in the top 10 of the countries in terms of supply of minerals, for sure. And for me, what is really today the wealth of Africa is the young population. And I see now, since a couple of months, I'm a venture partner into an incubation program of the Mohammed VI University in Morocco. It's called the Forge, the program. It's a 9-month residential program to support African founders. And to be honest, I see that all these guys, they've they have this level of ambition that I mentioned in the crazy method. They have a high level of ambition. They want really to do something which will be huge, and they want to stay in Africa because they want to out the continent.
Yeah.
And
I love this notion of, I love this notion of impacting 1 billion lives. You know, with Africa having, I think, about a population of about 1.5 billion. You're really saying that, you know, these super entrepreneurs look to globalize themselves in an African context, which is amazing. Yeah. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, but I think you are right. I think usually super entrepreneurs, they tackle, and it's also a notion that we know quite well in the Exo community, is a moonshot. And a moonshot basically has 3 characteristics. The first one is that you need indeed to impact a lot of people, and ideally 1 billion people, you know, then you play really a big role. The second thing is that you are using exponential technologies. I already mentioned about it. And the third component is that you apply radical solutions. So what I call crazy ideas. So unconventional ways to solve these big problems. And why I believe this is, let's say, really a way to build another future, radical ideas, is because, you know, so we have in the age of exponential acceleration, we see that many technologies are accelerating very fast, exponentially. But at the same time, the intensity of the problems are also accelerating exponentially.
Exactly. Yeah.
If you look at climate change, for example, it has increased in the last year exponentially, not linearly. And so if we want to solve these problems at a massive scale, what we see is that the conventional solutions are not working. So we have to come with very new, innovative solutions. And you know, in innovation, we know this again in the Exo movement. You can apply, let's say, incremental solutions that will improve by 10%, 20%, or you can apply disruptive solutions that will improve, let's say, create, let's say, gains for the problem by 10x, 20x. This is what we want. Because do we want, you know, climate change to reduce CO2 emissions by a few tons per year? No, probably what we need is 1 million tons per year or something like this, you know. So what we need today is indeed this kind of radical solutions. But to apply these radical solutions, we must have people that are bold enough. Because if it's too, and I have nothing against Facebook, but if we want to build the next Facebook, what's the point? Because Facebook already exists. I think it's better to have people that tackle these kind of urgent problems that are critical for the future, but they come with their solution where everybody says, look, you are completely crazy, this will never work, etc. But at the end, if you succeed, you will change maybe the planet. That's the beauty.
I think it's not. I think it's not just bold. I think it really is. It really is crazy. And you know, as you talk about, so for example, as you talk about the climate problem, I mean, some of the things that we've unpacked or uncovered with the current project that we're busy with is for fuel for you know, normal petroleum or diesel. It takes 2 barrels of fuel to get 1 barrel to you to use in your vehicle or your generator or wherever you're using it. You know, so the carbon impact of that is totally insane. And what the industry typically does with pyrolysis, so you know, to get rid of plastic. The other thing that I didn't know, and I mean, how I didn't know this is still a mystery to me. I didn't know that plastic comes from oil. I don't know. You know, it's just like something that you just assume this plastic emerges from somewhere. So plastic comes from oil, takes 2 barrels of fuel to get, anything to you. And typically what has been done is large-scale pyrolysis, but the plastic doesn't end up in these centers of where the large-scale pyrolysis is happening. The plastic ends up on islands and in the sea and all over the show. So if we bring a solution that can be applied where the plastic problem is on a small scale, you're eliminating the need for the plastic to go to the island in the first place, or the plastic to be taken away, the fuel to go to the island, or the plastic to be taken away from the island. And it turns out that we're not just talking about, the 30-odd thousand islands in Asia Pacific. We're talking about almost every small town in Africa is an island of plastic. And the plastic never leaves there, it just gets incinerated. So if we can, on a small scale, actually now convert plastic into energy that is used in the local ecosystem, that's kind of the crazy idea that we're busy with at the moment. What are your thoughts on that?
I totally agree, and I like the venture on which you are working. With this basically insects that are basically eating somehow the plastic. I think it's a crazy idea, and this is typically this kind of idea. It's a new way to turn the problem, very differently than the usual solutions. Look, we can say a lot about indeed climate change. For example, the company I co-founded, Man Electric, we just now created a new company to produce silicon, but in a green way, because if you want to produce silicon, which is used everywhere, because we say we are in the digital world, but the reality is, for the digital world, you need a lot of hardware, and all these hardware, they use silicon. And the way today silicon is produced is that it's a carbothermal reduction process. And basically, when you produce 1 ton of silicon, you produce 10 tons of CO2 emissions. So it's one of the most polluting industry in the world. So to sustain, let's say, our digital world, we are just producing a lot of CO2 emissions. And what we have created at Man Electric is a completely new way to produce silicon, which will probably cut at least by 5 the CO2 emissions, because we don't use carbon, it's purely electric. And how it is crazy this, because initially the process has been created to produce silicon on the surface of the moon. So we have applied a technology that initially was developed for space, and especially for producing metals on the moon. And we are applying this today on Earth to cut CO2 emissions and to produce green silicon. And in the future, even other metals like iron, titanium, etc. In that way.
Incredible.
So you
how
see
does this
again,
crazy... Sorry. How does this crazy ideas framework relate to the Towards Success acronym? Is it part of the same thing, or does Towards Success take it further?
Sorry, say it again.
The Towards Success acronym that you where you're saying tracking, overachieving, attracting, rewarding, delivering, selling.
Path to success. Yes, this is the Super-Entrepreneur blueprint. That's another framework. So the crazy method is really something which is short and very impactful. It's true that initially I had also in mind this Super-Entrepreneur blueprint, with indeed the core pillars that are so path towards success is again an acronym. So path is the core pillars, towards are the guiding principles, and then success are the key characteristic of these kind of ventures. So again, it's something which is helpful to build a very viable and sustainable companies. Maybe it will be a bit too long to explain all of them, and maybe people can just visit my website if they want to have more information about it. But the core pillars are around, the purpose, the ambition, also what I call the thirst, which is the propulsive force around super entrepreneur, and humility, because I think yes, you need to stay humble when you want to tackle these kind of challenges. And the towards are the guiding principle. Indeed, they track all the data. They are overachieving, etc. So again, there are a lot of guiding principles if you want to succeed. And among the key characteristics, usually, if you want to have this kind of successful ventures, you need to be service-minded, customer-centric, and scalable, sustainable, etc. But actually, things always seem very simple initially, but the reality is that if you want to succeed and to build a company, and particularly in the deep tech area, so this kind of ventures around AI, robotics, space tech, even defense tech, etc. There are a lot of things to be considered if you want to succeed. So in terms of human resources, financials, product development, sales, business development, etc. So I would say it's valid for all companies, but it's probably even more critical in terms of deep tech, because usually during many years you don't have revenues, so you need also to find ways to fund, let's say, the company before finally the company can start generating some revenues and some profits.
Yeah, so you mentioned purpose, and what we found is once you get past the challenge of getting the abundance mindset entrenched and understood, you get to the point of purpose. And of course, in the EXO framework, one of our favorite attributes is the massive transformative purpose. So 1 billion people attracted to your crazy idea that's whose time has come. Are you still applying that extensively?
Yeah, I think the MTP, is what gets you off the bed every morning. So, the MTP, massive transformative purpose, it's indeed the thing that is behind everything that you do, but it must be transformative, because when you will have done what you want to do, it will create a transformation. And ideally, it must be massive, so it must impact, let's say, a lot of people. So you can have a personal MTP, a company can have an MTP, and many companies have indeed an MTP, a massive transformative purpose. But you personally, and each of us, we can have an MTP. I don't remind exactly mine, but mine is indeed to inspire and guide world builders to build the world, as I always say, to build the world that we love. Because I think I'm the father of 4 kids, and what I would like when I pass away is to leave a world which is a bit better than it is today. Even if I think that we have made a lot of progress if we compare our world to maybe what the world was 100 or 200 years ago. There has been a massive improvement in many things, in healthcare, even in let's say environment, etc. Even if there are still wars, there are still less wars, etc. So I think that globally the world is better. But when we say this, we cannot ignore that there are still some big problems. In many parts of the world, some people, unfortunately, they have one meal per day. In some parts of the world, you cannot access to clean water, or there is no tap water which is clean everywhere. So you were mentioning the plastic problem. That's a huge problem, and particularly in Africa. So yes, again, in terms of health, even if we can cure many diseases today, for example, we are still, let's say, cancer is still killing a lot of people every year. So I think there are still a lot of problems in the world, and this is where probably I do believe entrepreneurs they can play a role to build the world that we love. Yes, indeed. And so my MTP is to inspire and guide these kind of world builders.
Yeah, and if we go back to the plastic problem, I mean, the thinking is that if we can put something that solves the plastic problem and creates commercial value in the local environment, then we're uplifting people. So that notion of job creation, where the problem is, but scaling that out is going to be one of our biggest challenges. And you talk about retro planning, and then so having these big goals that are probably have a 5 to 10 year horizon. But then on the contrary, just do it. So how do you balance that, focusing on getting stuff done now so that you move the needle, keeping it within the guardrails of the MTP, but still with the big purpose and the long-term goals in mind?
No, that's a very good question, Craig. Look, usually I advise, entrepreneurs, founders to start with a master plan. So the master plan gives maybe for the next 5 years or the next 10 years, what, let's say, are the big milestones of the company in terms of funding, revenues, team size, which product they want to launch, where, etc. Which type of market they want to tackle, etc. And then from this master plan, now for the first year, we know more or less what we want to achieve. Now, how to get there? And indeed, usually what works best is to do a retro planning. So if I want to be in 1 year at this stage, what I should do in the next 6 months, in the next 3 months, maybe this week, in order to achieve it. And then you start to see that small actions taken every week will at some point lead you to this big objective, big milestone at the end of the year. And usually one has to be also extremely focused, because what I see with many entrepreneurs and innovators, they have a lot of ideas. They want to go a bit in all directions, etc. But this does not work. I think what is very important is indeed to be extremely focused. For example, in terms of market, what I love, and I repeat this to all founders, is to use the curve of the Moore market adoption curve. So usually start with the early adopters. So a small number of potential customers that will be happy to test your product, that eventually will accept that your product is not perfect, etc. And then when you have something which is much more robust, then you can tackle the early majority, because the early majority are a group of customers that they don't accept maybe the initial defects, etc. They want something which is more robust, etc. And the big mistake is to try to speak with all kind of customers without distinguish the ones that are early adopters, the ones that are early majority. So this makes a big difference, and particularly, in deep tech, when you have this kind of crazy ideas, it's very important to find this small number of people that really believe in you. I give you an example from Africa, from the Forge incubation program. There is one guy, he is very brilliant, and he want to create food thanks to locust, these insects, locust, and so he found in the Middle East, for example, today, because moreover this locust is also halal, etc. So in Middle East, he found some quite big companies, but that should be, early adopters, because they want to initially test some samples, and then from these samples, probably they can already buy several tons per year, etc. So this is very important to have this kind of approach. So what is the small steps that can be taken in order to achieve, the big milestone? Because he could already say, "Oh, I will go, to see some big food companies, etc." But maybe these big food companies, they want already a product that is fully working, etc. And today is still at the very early days. Yes.
Yeah, something that already meets all the health and safety. So what comes to mind is good enough now rather than perfect later. But you also talk about perfect execution. So how do you balance good enough now in terms of the product to get into the early adopters versus execution?
Yeah, I think what we have to differentiate is to get a product which is maybe good enough. And usually, if you are good at 70% enough, probably it's a good, let's say, rule of thumb. And we have to distinguish this with the execution. I mean, perfect execution does not mean that your product has to be perfect, and sometimes there is a confusion between the two. What I mean by delivering or let's say executing in an excellent way is that if you start, delivering to customers, etc., give the best of you, try to be professional in your relationship with potential customers. If you deliver, try to maybe, if there is some packaging, to have a good packaging, etc. It's sometimes the small details that will make the difference. Why? Because many times you have also one chance, so you need to make good impression from the start with the product that you are delivering. For example, if you have the chance to have some early adopters, try to have even an MVP, minimum viable product, even with just a few features. But this should work quite well, because if you deliver, let's say, something which has a lot of problems, of course there can be bugs and things to be improved for sure. But if you deliver something which has a lot of problems, etc., you are just going to create deception among, let's say, your potential customers. And usually they have big hopes because you are coming with some radical solutions. So they have big hopes in you, and then you are going to give them some deception. So usually, and this is one of the tracking guiding principle, try to instead have some overachievement. So you promise something, but but you deliver even more than what was promised. And this is a way to, because the customer, they were expecting something, and it's even working even better than what you were offering initially. That's a way to create, some wow effect among your customers. They say, wow, these guys, they promised me this, but I get something even better. So,
so an obsession with customer satisfaction and over meeting more than their expectations is what I'm hearing.
yes.
The other thought is you wrote the book back in 2021. You've had all of this experience now, and you've had some massive successes since then. So, what would you say are the highlights? If you were to do the brief for the next version of the book, what would the highlights of that be?
Look, to be honest, if I would have to make an update of the book, most of the book will still be applicable in terms. I think the crazy method is perfectly still applicable. In terms of the exponential technologies that I was mentioning in the book, many of them are still very relevant. If we look at AI, it is even it has let's say at even a level that we were not imagining, let's say a few years ago. I was already mentioning robotics and robots that will be in our daily life. I don't know if you saw now this Neo robot that costs $20,000 and you can start buying one to do all your chores at home, etc. So I think, and we know that there is also Tesla Optimus coming, etc. So I was already mentioning this in the book. I think in terms of solutions for food, some companies like Impossible Foods they are still doing great. Nova Meat has made a lot of progress. I was mentioning this African entrepreneur with this locust food, etc. So this is also something which is still very applicable. What is maybe the new thing is that it's true that in terms of climate change, environmental aspects, etc., even if there are still a lot of companies and entrepreneurs, innovators working in the field, we have seen, at least in Europe, somehow some reduction, let's say, of interest for it. And it has been replaced by defense, because of the geopolitical context and the different wars that we are facing. But defense tech.
Defense.
Yeah, and so if I would update my book, maybe I should include maybe somehow defense tech that I was mentioning at all in the book. It's true that it's something that today is very relevant in order to live in a more secure world. For example, also cyber security. I think we see with hybrid wars, etc., that this is very relevant. This is something that I was mentioning at all in the book, and maybe this should need an update probably in that respect. Yes.
I think this. What about the scale of AI? So I mean, we were probably thinking a little bit linear when we first perceived AI. I mean, we were certainly thinking in terms of interfaces and automation and the stuff that we'd always been doing, but we hadn't really perceived the scale of it. So I mean, even with when we put these plastic plants at the source of the problem, we're going to platform the business, have an AI layer across the data so that we can be learning and improving without actually going and looking at each machine, which is what you would have had to do back in the day with the traditional interface kind of thinking. So I think the scale of AI is certainly an interesting addition to where things are going. The way it's across everything. It's across blockchain and across,
No, the reality, Craig, is that even if we have if we have an exponential mindset, you and me and Liezel, the reality is that sometimes we are still thinking linearly because our brain is wired like this, and you are perfectly right. In terms of AI, probably I was a bit too conservative in my thinking about AI, and we have seen that that's a truly exponential technology. So we have seen an explosion of AI. But you are perfectly right. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Liezel, do you want to wrap us up? I think we're good. What do you think, Fabrice?
No, sure. I think it was a very interesting conversation, and thank you, Craig and Liezel, for inviting me. It was very interesting for me to share, let's say, about super-entrepreneurship and my book Super-Entrepreneurship Decoded and some updates. But yes, I think the world is still accelerating exponentially, and we still need a lot of innovators, and particularly in Africa. So yes, I would invite all entrepreneurs to not be shy and to be really bold, to don't be afraid about crazy ideas, actually. Yeah.
And I was just another thought is also the potential or the possibilities with quantum computing and AI. Things are going to get increasingly, I don't know what else to call it, but crazy, and we're going to have to get our minds around that as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So yeah.
Yeah, I think what I would just like to add is that the crazy ideas, being bold and not scared, is not limited to entrepreneurs. I would like to challenge enterprises as well. Be crazy, be bold, because you also can still change this world, and there's a reason your organization exists. So please adopt what has been discussed here. And I just want to thank both of you, Craig and Fabrice, for inspiring us today here and providing us with a very insightful conversation on your book, Fabrice, Super-Entrepreneurship Decoded. We will certainly share your website link with our audience, and then also where they can purchase your book, of course. I think everybody should go out and buy that book right now. Also, I will share the contact details of Craig and Fabrice, and to reach out. I know, Fabrice, you're doing a lot of mentoring as well.
Yes, correct.
Yes, and Craig as well. So we've got two great people here who came together today to share their thoughts and their thinking about what the world should look like. So let's go out there and change the world. So Craig, thank you very much for making yourself available to have this conversation with Fabrice. And Fabrice, thank you. We cannot thank you enough. And we look forward to picking up some more of our earlier conversations with you as well. And perhaps another podcast, if I can be so cheeky.
Always with pleasure. Thanks, Liezel. Thanks, Craig.
Thank you.
It was
Thank you,
very, very interesting conversation. Yes, and indeed, let's build the world we love. Indeed.
Absolutely. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Cheers.